Hello, my name is Tom Beckers, and I'm a case manager here at Vinland Center. At Vinland Center, we attempt to integrate new and exciting information from the field of neuroscience. Those that are in the field of neuroscience are quick to point out that the amount of information about the human brain has nearly doubled in recent history, and we know more now about the human brain than we ever have. So it's an interesting topic, and in this 4-part video series, what we're going to do is just offer some basic brain and nervous system education, and then offer some mindfulness practice to help integrate some of the things that we're teaching here and some of the things that you can learn here at the website. So perhaps we could start with the human brain. So this is, obviously if you were to cut your brain in half, we would see inside different structures in the brain. And the brain really evolved over time in almost 3 phases. And so the first phase to evolve was this part down here called the brainstem. And so the brainstem is the oldest part of the brain, and it's primarily responsible for basic functioning. So your breathing, your heart rate, things like that. It can help with wakefulness and sleepiness, and so some pretty important functions, kind of the basic kind of things we take for granted. So the next part that evolved was this part right above the brainstem called the midbrain, or the limbic system. And the midbrain is not very big, however, it has a huge role in the brain. It does all kinds of stuff. And one of its main jobs is to regulate internal processes. And so, so everything that happens in the body needs to be regulated, and the body looks to create sort of homeostasis, a balance. It attempts to create balance. So this is the part of the brain that does that. It's also called the emotional part of the brain, because that's where, within this limbic system or this midbrain structure, is where our emotions are housed. So it's very, very important. Then around the midbrain, so up at the very top, is the part of the brain that we often, when we think about the brain, we may see this crinkly mass of flesh called the cerebral cortex. So this is the newest part of the brain, and the one part of the cerebral cortex, or the frontal lobe, is behind your forehead, and this is where the executive functioning skills are housed. And executive functioning is just, it's very important. And it's things like learning, impulse control, short-term memory, problem solving, planning. So doing the higher levels of functioning. When we hear the word executive, we think, the boss or the, and it really is kind of the boss of the brain. So it does a whole lot. So the brain and these 3 different parts of the brain are just one part of the nervous system. So the brain stem, as I mentioned, is attached to the spinal cord, which then runs down through your body and then spreads out this incredible network of nerves that are sending a staggering amount of information both to the body and from the body. So it's kind of this interaction between the two, between the brain and the spinal cord. Another part of the nervous system is what's called the peripheral nervous system. So there's the brain and the spinal cord, that's the central nervous system. But then coming out of the spinal cord is this vast network of nerves that actually attach right to tissues and are responsible for things that we don't even think about. The functioning of our kidneys, our liver, our digestive system. So some of that is involved. So within those 2 systems, okay, the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, there's something called the autonomic nervous system. And so when you hear autonomic nervous system, think automatic. And this part of the central nervous system is highly influenced by mental activity. So the cerebral cortex, this part, the crinkly part of our brain, the thinking part, if you will, really impacts this autonomic nervous system. Now, within that nervous system, you can break it out into 2 parts. One part is called the sympathetic nervous system, and the other part is called the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is like the green light, the go button. Harnesses your energy, helps you meet a demand, helps you get away from danger. When we're actively stressed out, this is the nervous system that's active. The parasympathetic nervous system is the nervous system that's active when we're relaxed, when we're conserving energy, when we're calm, when we're still. So the cerebral cortex plays a big role in communicating to these two parts of our nervous system. Oftentimes people find themselves living in a state of hypersympathetic nervous system activation, which just means they're stressed out and that go button is turned on for too long, too often. So the parasympathetic nervous system is also responds greatly to mental activity. So we can turn on either one of these systems in a way. We play a big role in how we feel moment to moment. So this video series and in our next installment, we'll talk a little bit about how a mindfulness practice can be the mental activity that can turn on the parasympathetic nervous system more often, because the brain will function at its highest level when there's a balance of these two systems. So it's not very healthy to have the sympathetic nervous system turned on all the time or to be stressed out all the time. And so a mindfulness practice can help balance these two systems out, hopefully inducing greater health. So stick around, watch the next videos, and start a practice. Thanks.